Hey, you guys, what's going on? It's your girl, Pretty Sexy Jar the Brand, aka Stunner Assassin, and of course, your girl is back for another review slash recap of the Bell Collectors. Tonight, whenever you're seeing this review, we are going into episode 2 of season 6, and baby, the title of today or tonight's episode, whenever you see this, is Polly A. Marie. Baby, the girls is gonna give it juicy and Jackson. But first, I want to give a shout out to my assassin family. First, I just want to thank you guys so much. Now, since we have gone up to 252, we have gotten there. We are getting there, and I'm just so thankful for you guys' support, love, liking, comment, sharing, telling a friend to tell a friend, and just being my always silent but deadly ninjas. But you guys, um, make sure y'all tap in into the description box and hit the links. But we are finna go ahead and jump into our review of the Bell Collective season 6 episode 2, Polly A. Marie. So yes, y'all. As we get into the opening scene, baby, it is our girl, Miss Letitia Pierce, and she has chosen to have dinner or lunch with the newest belle, Miss Carrie Paul, and she's chosen this restaurant in Jackson called Monty's. And baby, she is the first to arrive, of course. And baby, they sit her down at a table, and while she's at the table waiting on Miss Carrie, baby, our girl Miss Letitia breaks down all of her job titles, and baby, we actually get to see her do one of her job titles, which is be a Bell's Bondsman. Baby, she was calling one of her clients to remind them of their court date that they had coming up. And she said don't play with your girl, because she is really out here moving and shaking things up. Baby, being an entrepreneur, a Bell's Bondsman, and baby, if you want to get a divorce from your husband or your partner, she can definitely help you do that. And it's just good to see our girl Miss Letitia in a good space. We get to see her doing her entrepreneurship and being a boss. But while she's sitting there at the table, of course, our girl Miss Carrie comes on in, and baby, our girl got the pearls on the pants, baby, the pearls around the neck, baby, the shoes bling blinging. Our girl Miss Carrie, the newest belle, is definitely not coming to play with the girls. Where she comes in, and her and Miss Letitia, they speak, they hug, baby, and they just sit right on down and get into the tea and into the things. And our girl Miss Letitia says, she is so happy to be working with Miss Carrie, and that she really enjoys her, and her girl is very well connected. But when they sit down, she asks her how she doing, how she been. She's like, girl, I'm good. But she's like, girl, y'all had cut up last weekend in Jackson, baby. Y'all had cut up. And of course they're referring to about Miss Marie's party, and we get a flashback, and our girl Miss Letitia is defending her girl Miss Marie. And she's like, okay now, you know, Miss Carrie, you coming in with a little bit of shade, a lot of shade. She said, girl, you can't do that. You want to be part of the Bill Collective. But, of course, and we were like, it was like everybody. It was like trying to figure out, like, yo, ex-husband, yo, new boo, like, what's the tea, what's the move? But once we got past that, our girl Miss Letitia lets our girl Miss Carrie know that she actually is doing a rebranch and relaunch of her women empowerment brunch, and she's actually, kicking things off. And she's hosting an event, and she would like for Miss Carrie to attend. And baby, Miss Carrie says, okay, well, girl, we really need to get you some girl and some sponsors. And our girl Miss Titia's like, I've been doing this by myself. And our girl Miss Carrie said, well, baby, I got you now. Don't worry, I got you. This what I'm talking about, Bell Collectors, the sisterhood and the unity. But y'all, as we go from that scene to our next scene. So yes, y'all. As we get into our next scene, baby, it's our girl Miss Marie Monroe, and baby, she is pulling up to the Hamilton Davis building, which is Mrs. Monroe's building and brand. And baby, she is walking in, giving very much so boss status, boss glow. Baby, she comes in, she speaks to her front desk assistant, and she lets her know, her and her partner are going to have a meeting and they gonna chat things up in a minute. And so she goes into the back, and of course we see our girl Miss Monroe. She sits down, and of course she's sitting down with her partner, which is Miss Issy, which is also her best friend. And so, baby, she come in. Issy's looking like, "Hey, girl." They check in with one another, and they sit down. And of course, they catch up and they have girl talk. But also while they're having it, Miss Monroe shares with Miss Issy. She's like, "Girl, I want to have a conversation that we had a little over a year ago." And she's like, "I think it's time for us to have that conversation again." And Issy's like, "Girl, what are you talking about?" And she said, "I think it's time I retire. I've been working 25 years building into a Hamilton brand and, done so much for the community." She said, "I think it's time that I retire and, you take my position." And Miss Essie said, "No, girl, no, not yet. I need you to stay one more year." She said, "Just give me one more year." And Miss Monroe's like, "Girl, that's what you said last year, give you one more year." She's like, "Well, girl, I'm telling you, just give me one more year." And she's like, "Why?" She said, "Because ain't nobody gonna run this place like you gonna run it." And that really speaks a lot to Miss Monroe's character as a boss and just how well she is with organization and a team. Um, and then they start talking about the party. And she said, "Baby, you need to stop juggling these men while you trying to, you know, get out and leave me." And yeah, baby, Miss Monroe was looking like, "Girl, I know you did not go there." And she was like, "Yes, baby, I went there." And of course, they've been girlfriends. They have chatter, a little banner back and forth. And Miss Issy says, "I don't know who to root for." And Miss Monroe gonna say both of them, baby. When I tell you, Kiki, okay. And y'all, as we go from this scene to our next scene. So yes, y'all. As we get into our next scene, baby, it's our girl, Miss Marie, and y'all will never guess what she is at. Lord have mercy. She is in the kitchen of her ex-husband, and she is making breakfast, honey. And he is in the bed, and he asking her what she doing. She says, "I'm doing something special." She talking and giggling, and he looking and smiling. I'm like, "Girl, what's tea? What's going on here?" And come to find out, they went out on a date. They had a couple drinks. One thing led to another. And she said, "Baby, she woke up in over there." Okay, girl. And while she in the kitchen, she asks him how did he like her party. He said it was lit, it was a vibe. And she comes in with the breakfast she has made and his coffee. And baby, she gets in the bed with him, honey, and let's just say they jump right on into the conversation of the things. Miss Marie expresses, about how she felt at her party and about her friend that came, and her ex-husband also expressed his feelings and his thoughts about how it made him feel, the situation he was in. But also he did tell Miss Marie that he does want her to be happy. And she shares in her interview that she loves her ex-husband, and that right now she's just in this place. Baby, I'm gagging. But y'all, as we go from that scene to our next scene. So yes, y'all. As we get into our next scene, baby, it is our belle, Miss Selena. And baby, she is at home. And Miss Selena is opening up currently about her communication, you know, that she's having issues with her fiance. And we get to see a scene of Miss Selena as she is planning for to have an all-white event for the memory of her son that she lost. And you know as she's preparing and getting ready for that, she says she has been giving her fiance the silent treatment, because he went out of town, baby. He wasn't answering their phone, and she was like, yeah, we need help with our communication. She said, because I think he's getting a little bit comfortable. And she was like, he don't need to be getting comfortable because how he got me is how he needs to be, still trying to keep me. And I was like, yeah, I get that because, see, Miss Selena's a Scorpio. And see, we're very, whatever you do to get us, that's what you need to do to keep us. But, we see him pulling up from work in the truck. He's bringing some items into the home, and he speaks to Miss Selena, and baby, let's just say they jump into the conversation, and he was like, "What's wrong?" And she was like, "You know what's wrong." And he's like, "What?" He's like, "What I do?" And she was like, "You went out of town, and you didn't answer your phone." And she said, "You not moving like my fiance. You moving like my boyfriend." She's like, "And we have a date or a gathering plan. Miss Letitia has planned something to help you and I work on our communication because the Pearsons have been through hell and back." Miss Selena words, and baby, she said they can probably help us with our communication. Baby, as we go from that scene to our next scene. So yes, y'all. As we get into our next scene, it's the day of our girl Miss Letitia's event, and baby, the event is set up very beautiful. The home that it's in, or the event space, is very nice. It has this 18th century build to it. Just very pleasing aesthetic. Um, and baby, as she has walked in, our girl Miss Letitia has on leopard print suit, serving from head to toe, body cute, hair done, slayed. And it's just giving tea. I see a few familiar faces that I know in Jackson that I personally have encountered and socialized with. So it's good to see my people on the screen. Shout out to my people. But yes, the day of the women's work the room, baby. Our first guest to arrive, of course, is our girl Miss Carrie. Let me see something. Miss Carrie gonna be on time. I don't care what day the event is. She gonna be on time. She's showing up for the people. Dying period. Um, baby, and then our next guest to arrive is Miss Selena. And baby, when Miss Selena comes in, baby, she has on this nice green dress, Chanel pendant, baby, looking very beautiful. She see all the girls is in the bathroom. She go in, of course she speaks, and there's the vibe, the energy. You feel it. We having a good time. They chatting and chatting. And baby, the event is getting ready to start, and the event coordinator is speaking, and then that's when our guest Miss Latrice arrives, and she comes in. Baby, Miss Latrice, I'm loving the dress, loving the hair. We see the twins, bow, and then our girl of the hour, Miss Letitia, she gets up and she speaks, and she lets everyone know what her event is about, and the importance of giving back to female entrepreneurs in Jackson, Mississippi, or just overall in the state of Mississippi, and her plans to do that to over 3,000 women to help them build into their entrepreneurship. And I think that is a great cause, and she says she's doing it because guess what, her dream started here in Mississippi, and that's why it's important for her to give back. And she gives this very best passionate speech, and you can tell everyone in the room is very attentive and listening. And baby, she ends and closes and tells everyone, hey, let's work the room, which is a very nice slogan. And baby, the ladies start to get together. We start to see a little chatter. We get to see other constituents in the area working together, collaborating. And then, baby, while the girls is talking, Miss Letitia, I mean, no, not Miss Latrice actually meets Miss Carrie. This is their first time actually meeting because Miss Treese was not at the party, and baby, she says, "What happened at the party? Did I miss anything? Was there any tea?" And then, she gets to tell us, she likes Miss Carrie. Miss Carrie is extra, but she said anything extra is always up her alley. And baby, the next thing you know, while they're cheating and chatting about the party, guess who comes through the door? Our girl, Miss Monroe. And baby, our girl came in, baby, with the fit on, baby, the makeup done. She just came in, and Miss Letitia said, "Oh, is this why we were late coming?" And the girls are all huddled up, and our girl Miss Carrie said, "Okay, baby, outer space." She giving from another galaxy, baby. And I was like, Miss Carrie gonna say what's on her mind. Okay, girl. And y'all, it's just getting started. So y'all, we get back into the scene, and like I said, my girl Miss Marie had came in, and baby, let's just say, the girls was talking about the party, was trying to be all in Miss Marie's business, and baby Miss Marie said, "Ha ha ha, let's play a game," and she was like, "True or false? How many of y'all done had infidelity issues in y'all relationship or marriage?" Baby, when I was say their room got like pins and needles, and the girls was looking around, and baby, the eyes was, girl, it was just giving a lot of telltales or whatever. And Miss Marie said, "Yeah, we gonna play this game. Y'all wanna be in my business, so I wanna be in y'all. Let's play this game. I wanna know." And Miss Latrice was like, "Well, baby, I'ma stay false, I ain't never heard, ain't never." And Miss Carrie was like, "Baby, this is boring. Very boring. We're bored." And baby, the girls was just like, "Girl, why is you even doing this?" And she was like, "Cause y'all want to be in my business, so I just want to be up in y'all's. And I'm still waiting for the question to be answered." And baby, that question never got answered. And Letitia was like, "You know what, girl? I do. I got an inquiring question. So, like, what is going on between you and our boy and you and your ex-husband? Because the last time we all was together, our boy was your boyfriend, and it's your party. That ain't the vibe it was giving." And of course, our girl Miss Marie gave, her answer, and she said, she expressed her feelings, and she was like, things have changed, but she's single, she can do what she wanna do, unlike others. And baby, and I'm just like, girl, what is going on? Them girls is really having in it. But Miss Letitia says, "Y'all, let's go. Let's go work the room. Let's, build and get into community. Let's talk, have conversations." And so then that's when our girl, Miss Latrice and Miss Selena, they sit down and they talk, and they had a one-on-one about why Miss Selena, is not the bartender it tastes, and like what happened, what occurred. And of course, they both of the ladies expressed their feelings, and what happened, and they both come to a mutual understanding, and saying, they each other's girls, they always gonna rock with each other. And baby, then that's when we see our girl Miss Monroe and Miss Carrie go off to the side, and then it get into some teas and a little read fest, but we end on good terms. And while things are ending on a positive note, that is when our girl Miss Selena invites all the Bells to her event that she's hosting in memory of her son, and she lets the ladies know that she wants to open up a facility for people that are dealing with grief. And all the ladies shared that they are going to be there and that they will be attending, and that is very important to show up in sisterhood and support. And I cannot wait to see that scene in the episode. And then, our girl Miss Letitia um, gives our girl Miss Carrie her props, for having her a restaurant open on in Biloxi, in Gulfport, and in Mobile, Alabama. And baby, they was like, "Oh, Miss Carrie is that girl." And Miss Carrie's like, "Yes, I am that girl." And they was like, "Well, you can't be dressing like that." And she was like, "I ain't just like I want to dress, cause I want to dress like everybody else." And I was like, "Yes, ma'am, Miss Carrie." But y'all, as we go from that scene to our next scene. So yes, y'all. As we get into our next scene, baby, it is our girl Miss Selena, and she is going to visit her daughters. They're all over Sky's house or Star's house. As she's getting ready to have another baby. So congratulations. And y'all, they're all sitting down in the front room, and Miss Selena is coming over to talk to her daughters about her and Mike and what's been going on, which is her fiance. And they're all sitting down in the front room. They're happy to see their mom. It's hugs and kisses. The grandbabies are happy. It's all smiles and joy. And they go put the kids down for a nap. And when Selena sits down, and she is very open and vulnerable and personal with her girls, about her and her fiance's relationship, and when the time he came into her life, which is when she lost her son during in 2020, and just how she was emotionally and what was going on, and her daughters expressed their opinions, and they say Mike is a good person and he helps out, and they match each other's energy. And Miss Selena does listen to what her daughters are saying, and she's also being very open and transparent with them, because she's like, when she gets married this time, she wants it to be for the long haul, and which I completely understand, because when you meet somebody, you want love to be what love is. And they talk and they had that conversation, and Miss Selena says, her girls are not gonna understand. Well, they're not gonna see it because they love Mike so much. But she says she knows that they do have a lot to discuss, and she's glad she was able to talk to them and have this conversation. But y'all, we go from that scene to our next scene. So yes, y'all. As we get into our next scene, which is our closing scene, and baby, it is our girl Miss Marie Monroe, and baby, she's out on a date with her boyfriend Martin, and baby, they are at this restaurant, and they are finna sit down and get into the things and get into the conversations, and so baby, they sit down. Miss Marie asks, her boyfriend, how was his trip? How's he been? What's been going on? And, she says his trip was good and that everything's been going good. And so, our girl, Miss Marie, just jumps right on into it. She was like, so yeah, the day I picked you up, well, no, before we get to the day she picked him up, she asked him how did he like her party. He was like, oh, it was cool. And she was like, how did he like talking to her ex? And he was like, oh, it was nice, nice conversation. The party was cool. And then we get into the conversation about her saying that she had picked him up from the airport, and that they hung out the day she picked him up, the day after that, and then after that he kind of like just ghosted her, and there was no reason given to why, and she didn't hear from him, and she was like, while he was gone, that's when her ex-husband started coming around and checking in on her and talking to her and being there for her, and she shares with her boyfriend that she wants to end things, and baby, he was not expecting it. He was not ready for it. I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't ready for it. But she says it's not like she didn't care about him, and she just says that's where her heart is now, because he's been there, and he says he understands. And he gives her a hug, and she is crying, y'all. Oh my gosh, the Bell Collective. Y'all, it has been your girl, Pretty 6 Yard of Brand, aka Son Assassin. Until next time, your girl is out. Y'all be safe. The Bell Collective, Polly A. Marie.